In the later part of the 1800s, Cincinnati had its own small Montmartre, a strong community of artists on the upper end of Vine Street. One group of artists gathered informally at the studio of John Redding in 1883 as the Cincinnati Sketch Club. This loose collection of artists became the Cincinnati Art Club, formed in 1890, with the purpose of advancing the knowledge and love of art through education. It is now the second oldest continuously operating art club in the United States. Tonight we talk to Kay Worz, former president of the club, and Marlene Steele of the Cincinnati Art Club about the club's activities, histories, exhibitions, and some hauntings. So join us for a wonderful episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities Hometown Haunts podcast. I am your host, Kat Cloco. Tonight with me in the shadows are Jen Kohler, Christina Wald, and our wonderful guests. But before we get to them, we have a few social media updates. So you can follow us at Cin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram, and of course, we are dying to hear your own hometown haunts, so please send them to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. We're an official podcast that can be heard wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to see us while we're doing the show, like right now, you can watch the video feed on YouTube. Find us by searching Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities. Please rate and review us there so other spooky history lovers like yourself can find us. Link in the show notes. We have some show news. Thank you to everyone who submitted stories for this year's Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities anthology. It will be issue number 3, and my oh my, did we get a lot of proposals. I am going through them right now. We look forward to announcing the artists later this month in March 2022. You can hear me, Kat, speak at UC University of Cincinnati's Communiversity on March 15th, 2022 from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The cost is $39, but it includes copies of both anthologies, issues 1 and 2, and the opportunity to after the talk, oh my gosh, words, for me to sign them. The class includes ghost stories, the techniques of how I find and research all these new and old ghost stories, and a process of sharing them through the art of sequential art. So you can still register, I tried today, at the uc.edu link that we'll have in their show notes. And also, please wear a mask during the class since I have a yet to be vaccinated toddler at home. Thank you, and I hope to see you next week. Wow, that has come up very quickly. We also want to take a minute to send our support to the people of Ukraine and those who live in Kharkiv, our sister city to Cincinnati. Write your representatives and senators to allow refugees into the country to help the humanitarian crisis. Got a little verklempt there. Also, there are a number of charities to support everything from Doctors Without Borders to UNICEF. There's even a, Christina is adding it right now. Was it the World? I'm going to bring Christina on. Christina, what charities have you been supporting?
The World Central Kitchen.
Okay.
And I also have a link that I'm going to put in the show notes that's supposed to help with animals that have been displaced from their owners. It's the Ukraine Humane Society. And I was just about to paste that in. So both of those are good charities. There's also a couple charities where you can actually donate to people that are crossing the border so they can get money. And it doesn't necessarily go to a huge organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's also the International Fund for Animal Welfare just moved a bunch of lions out of the zoo from Ukraine.
I did hear about the zoo.
Yeah,
It's really tragic.
Oh my goodness, zoos and aquariums always during wartime get forgotten, and then it gets awkward when there's lions running around the middle of a war zone. So they were moved safely. They're all kind of shell-shocked, but they're okay. So yes, go donate to your charity of choice.
We'll have a couple links. A friend of mine from the Ukraine that lives in Texas, she's organized a couple of the women's art retreats that I've gone on, and she has been really good at finding really good agencies that actually the money goes directly to the people that need it rather than like huge organizations where you don't know how much actually ends up helping the people that are in need.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. Yeah, we'll have all that information in our show notes and also in our Facebook group, which is Hometown Haunts, which I believe I forgot to mention earlier. But thank you, Christina.
oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Back into the shadows you have gone. All right. So, our guests tonight are talking about the Cincinnati Art Club, and we're very excited to have them join us on the show. So, our first guest is Kay Worz. Born in Chicago, she resides here in Cincinnati, Ohio. She has a Bachelor's of Arts from Xavier University and completed post-grad work in Europe in drawing and painting. I am looking forward to hearing about those adventures. Initially working in, oh, it's a word, Kawa, oh, she is going to correct me on this, cloisonne, yeah, enamel. Kay was included in the Ohio Designer Craftsman Marketing Program. Through this catalog, she was chosen to create special gifts for the Ohio governor to present to foreign dignitaries. Also, I'm interested about hearing about that. Currently, she has been creating and teaching watercolor. Her style is described as calligraphic. She is a signature member of the Cincinnati Art Club and served as president from 2008 to 2010. She is a member of the Ohio Watercolor Society. Kay has served as chairman of the board of the Duvenick Association, an affiliate group of the Cincinnati Art Museum. She received Illustrator of the Year in 2012 and in 2013 in a national art competition, Art Comes Alive. She receives many awards in the Fusion Online competitions and Contemporary Arts Gallery online as well. In 2012 and in 2016, she had a painting selected and purchased by the Cincinnati Insurance Company as their annual report covers. She was commissioned to create paintings for the Liberty Township Children's Hospital. She has a copper enamel installations in 4 churches in Cincinnati and 1 in Pennsylvania. Kay currently teaches art classes for the University of Cincinnati's Communiversity program. Kay is married to Don Worz, a business entrepreneur, and has 2 grown sons, both professionals, and 4 grandchildren who inspire her every day. You can find more of her work at kwordsfineart.com. Also, that will be in the show notes. Our other guest is Marlene Steele, who graduated from the Art Academy in Cincinnati, majoring in painting. She paints portraits, figures, and landscapes in a fresh, painterly style and has won recognition for her artwork in all media, including oil, pastel, watercolor, and charcoal, such as the Individual Excellence Grant by the Ohio Arts Council for 2019, she was also a courtroom artist since 2004, established a regional reputation licensing visual images to media as well as to private commissions. I know Jen and I are interested in the courtroom artist work. That's really interesting. She also owns Steele Studios, accepting commissions in portrait, figure, and landscape, professional studio leasing property. She has the memberships and affiliations with the Portrait Society of America, Art Ambassador to Ohio, an international organization of portrait and figurative artists, Southeastern Pastel Society, Georgia, the Cincinnati Art Club signature member, vice president on the board of trustees, exhibition chair since 2016, and the Greater Cincinnati Calligraphers Guild, founded in 1980, not 1880. We'll get to that century in a minute. Regional Teaching Guild with continuous programming since 1980, founded and honorary member, and an artist in residence, the University Club of Cincinnati from 2015 to 2017. She also does teaching and outreach programs at the Taft Art Museum, the Artist's Eye Tour of current exhibition, with the current exhibition In a New Light, which I believe started February 12th, 2022, and also the Taft Museum of Art Artist Research Reaching Classroom, the ARC. She has worked for 15 years as a presenter, living artist whose work demonstrates a viable relationship to the Taft Museum of Art collection. The program reaches area high school students on the cusp of choosing career paths, working with high school art department staff to encourage its interest in the arts through professional interaction. You can find more of her work at marlenesteelefineart.com, and of course, that link will also be in the show notes. Wow, so accomplished. I am humbled reading all of this because I just know Japanese. And that's my skill. So that is so amazing that these 2 women have gone through and done all these awards. For those of you who are curious how we came to the Cincinnati Art Club, this is by way of Henry Fannery and our old friend Lafcadio Hearn, who we had a few episodes ago. And if you didn't catch that episode, Hearn and Fannery worked together to make the Ye Gigalamps zine here in Cincinnati back in the late 1880s, and Farney would later become the president, or one of the many presidents of the Cincinnati Art Club, in addition to becoming a prominent American painter. If you want to know more about Lafcadio Hearn, just check at the beginning of the season. We have all about his literary adventures there. So, with all that said, I am bringing on Marlene and Kay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Wow. I am just amazed reading all of that and the adventures you've had. I just have to go with the first question of, how did you get into art? And either one of you can start.
Oh, well, my mother was an oil portrait painter. And when we were children, she somehow managed to find the money to invite a professional artist, classical artist, into our home to give the children art lessons. And she
wow.
loved art. She felt that was very important. And it turned out my sister and I both became professional cloisonné enamel artists, and my brother was an industrial designer. But we all knew how to draw.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was very industrious of her, and it was important to her. So
Mhm.
that was the beginning of it.
I'm
And for
interested
you,
in the cloisonné, which I butchered masterfully earlier. Woo. Um, because of just how technical that has to be, working with all the
Mhm.
small metals and creating all those enamel pins or enamel pieces of art. They aren't
He's-
just pins. You can tell I've been designing pins recently because I'm like, enamel versus
It's a
acrylic
lot of
pins.
detail work.
It's a lot of
Yes, lots
detail work. So,
Mhm.
Marlene, how did you get into art? And also, you are muted.
There.
There we go.
Thank you, Kat. I was raised in a German Catholic parish in northern Kentucky, St. Augustine's. And it's a beautiful church, which is decorated highly with painted compositions of the different stories from the Bible and the life of Christ. And I enjoyed sometimes copying those, drawing the statues, and working with my crayons a lot, that my parents noticed how much I love to draw. And so they sent me to a neighborhood studio. And the woman, Eileen McCarthy, was actually a student of Duveneck when she was a young girl at the Art
Okay.
Academy. So I took classes with her for several years.
Oh, nice.
And that was the beginning of my foundation of drawing and pastel and oil
Mhm.
painting.
Wow. Oil painting, I can never get my mind around. I've always been able to do inks in 2D, but not oil painting. I don't know why. So it's slippering everywhere. Like watercolors, I'm fine with.
Oh,
But
wow.
oil painting, I'm always impressed with. I tried it and I was like, nope, not me.
No. But it is a very forgiving medium. I think as opposed to watercolor, which is not easy to backtrack.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is not easy.
Kay does beautiful, colorful watercolors, and
Thank
so
you.
it's
Yeah.
very impressive when you see how transparently beautiful they are.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That is so kind.
How
That
did
watercolor does not forgive. It stains. And once it's stained, you kind of start over. It can't fix it without it looking like you fixed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I use watercolors for coloring comic pages. So
Okay.
yeah, I understand how unforgiving it can be. And also when you have the wrong type of ink that you've used and you've laid down all your ink, and then you use a watercolor that blends with black real well, and you just get a muddy
Mm,
mess, and you're like, what have
yeah.
I done? What have I done with my
Mhm.
life? Why didn't I use the waterproof ink? Oh, silly me. So
Well,
I'm
it
always
happens.
curious. It happens. I'm curious, how did you get into oil and watercolor painting? What attracted you to those mediums?
This was Miss McCarthy's natural progression from the basic drawing in charcoal, because I
Mhm.
drew in charcoal for about a year.
Mhm.
And everything that we drew in her classes was from life. There were always still life studies or drawing out the window, and it was a constant reiteration of how to see properly, how to create volume, and and capture light in our work. And it was um, so after many studies in black and white, which my mother would say, "When are you going to do color?" It was we do one daffodil, and then we do two daffodils, and they were black and white daffodils. I mean, so it was really great when Eileen told my mother to get her daughter a box of pastels. And then I learned to use the pastels and mix the colors optically right on the paper.
Mhm.
Um, that was the start of my use of color. And the thing was that the box of pastels were they were Rembrandts,
Mhm.
which is a great workhorse style of pastel. It's not too soft, and it's also the colors were um, natural colors in that they weren't fluorescent
Oh, yeah.
colors. And
Mhm.
so learning how to mix those colors optically by applying them to a paper um, was the preamble for mixing colors on the color palette in an oil for oil.
Mhm.
It was, so it was like so it's changing from the point to the brush,
Mhm.
and that was really constructive.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. How about
Mhm.
you, Kay?
Well, actually, I started doing my exhibition as a senior in college. I did all cloisonne and all enamel. Limoges, those are different types. Those were all
Mhm.
developed back in the Byzantine era when
Mhm.
churches were hiring artists to do color when they did not have a window. Now, they had the stained glass windows, which was great, but when they wanted to put color behind an altar or on a wall that had no window, the cloisonne enamels were perfect because you could make them look like a stained glass, but you're applying color, you're firing, you're using the fine wire to create
Mhm.
that stained glass look. But you were then allowed to do objects like the tabernacles that had color. And so that was a big deal back in the Byzantine time. So in college, I learned that and loved it, absolutely loved it. It's got a lot of little wrenches in the plan. If I burned my fingers at first touching things that were 1500 degrees, and you have to
Mhm.
remember not to do certain
Oh,
things. But
my.
once you get the hang of it, it's really fun. You're working with powdered glass that's finer than powdered sugar. So you use the
Oh, wow.
wire, the cloisonne wire, to kind of mark your drawing, do your drawing, take the wire with the tweezers, match it to your drawing, then you fill in those areas with color. But each color goes into the kiln separately. They have different firing times. So you have to remember the golds are soft, the blues are harder. So don't do gold first because that will disappear. And if you leave it in the kiln 2 seconds too long, the whole thing melts into black.
Oh,
So there's a lot
wow.
of little drawbacks. But as I say, once you get into understanding what you don't do,
Right.
it's really beautiful. So I did that for a while and I joined the Ohio Designer Craftsman, doing it on a wholesale level for galleries around the country. And I was doing it so much that one day I couldn't get out of bed because you're bent over, you're working over your work. And my doctor said, whatever you're doing, stop. And I said, stop? So my mother at the time was taking classes from Ray Luce in watercolor. She wanted to switch from oil to watercolor. She says, oh, why don't you go to watercolor? You can stand up and paint and your back will be fine, which is what I did. And then I signed in and got a job at Baker Hunt teaching watercolor. Loved it, just absolutely loved it. So I have a great love for both. I still do commissions in the enamels, but I do love the watercolor. And the early masters would go out in the field and sketch and do watercolor and then come back into their studio and turn that into their oil paintings because it was quicker, was less hassle taking all their oils out there. So, but I do admire Marlene's gorgeous, gorgeous pastel work. She is magic to do that in a courtroom when people are moving every second. She's awesome.
Oh, yes.
She's quite a lovely talent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say that it's kind of interesting how both of us found directions towards our work in ecclesiastical environments.
Yes, yes.
It's very interesting because I loved the color that I saw in church and also the music. But it was just that's a very interesting an alliance there. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I agree totally that that watercolor and pastel make really great portable portable mediums, and you can work outside and do things kind of quickly without a lot of equipment, and then do the oil paintings in the studio. And I've done lots of work that way.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And how did you both get involved with the Art Club of Cincinnati?
Okay, you were involved way before me.
Well, yes, I was. I'm older than you are, Marlene.
No,
but
no, that's not the point.
Originally,
No.
someone invited me to the art club. Oh, okay. But someone invited me to the club to see what it was like, and I went, and it was very interesting. They had a program once a month where they'd bring in an artist to do a demo. They would bring them in from local, or they would get a national artist, bring them in. Fascinating to watch an artist work. They didn't have to really say too much because you can learn so much just watching. And I thought, oh, this is really the genuine article here. This is great. So I joined, and my other motive was I found out if you have to be vetted. You can be an associate, you can be a member, you don't have to be an artist, but there is a panel that you can bring your art in, and they decide if you are on a professional enough level, you can become, instead of an associate member, you can be an active member. So I thought, I'm going to do that because if you reach that level, you can have your own show, you can book the club and have your own exhibit, which is what I wanted to do. So when I did join, a couple of years later, they asked me to join the board. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know. So I did. And they gave me the little jobs. I was secretary, and then I was exhibition chair, vice president, and then ultimately president. I got to know all the members, and it was just great. I loved it. But I think the good old boys, it was basically a men's club. And in 1985, Martha Weber was the first female that became president. So she kind of broke the ice. The club actually needed revenue. So they opened it from an all men's club to a women's club in 85. She became president, and it's a 2-year stint. Beyond that, Judith Barnett, a few years later, was president. And then they were grooming me to be president. And I think they wanted me to be on the board to experience these different committee chairs. So, which was fine, that was good. But I enjoyed it, I loved it. And my board, I talked them into changing our title of associate and active to associate and signature member, because I looked around the country and all the clubs had signature members, and that was the same thing. You're a more professional member, and you are vetted. You bring pieces in, a panel looks at them to see if you understand drawing, color principle, if you have a style. They're looking for something that's identifiable. They kind of don't want to see everything that you can do. They want to see what you're really good at. So I thought that would be, this is good. Let's call ourselves signature members. So my board agreed. And we did a few other things. Once you get ladies on board, you get a few things done. We decided our entry hall was just a pair of glass doors that looked into the building. And the board said, well, why don't we put a changeable art out there so they realize we're an art place? And that was a great idea. I had a very good board, equal amounts of men and women, which was very, very nice. We all got along great. And we kept the tradition going of having an artist appear once a month. We would pay them to come and do a demo. And it was wonderful. It's the real thing. It really is classic art, fine art. And that's what I liked about it.
Okay. Yeah, that
And
sounds
now Marlene
remarkable.
is the active exhibition chair and vice president. So she could fill you in on what's happening right now.
Nice.
I think it's interesting. I joined because previously I was working with the Women's Club when they had a studio at the Pendleton, and they conducted their figure drawing classes at the Pendleton. And I had taken over the responsibility for the figure drawing model hiring and conducting the sessions. And so when they closed that studio and moved away to not very far, to Mariemont, I looked around for a drawing session that would be closer to home and not a too long of a drive and everything. So the art club is featuring that as part of the membership fee, which I think is a great advantage for the membership, either class, if you're an associate or a signature member. So that was the reason I joined the art club. Only, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago or so. And to be able to continue the grooming my drawing skills and staying active. It's important to be able to draw the figure fluidly, and this is one very important component of my abilities to work in court, is to draw at a constant pace, and compose in a fluid environment. So it's very important to stay in practice, and I love it. I love drawing, and I love the figure. I love the human figure. So I think it's great that we have the lobby feature because it having visible work across from those two glass doors right there on Parkside Place is really a way to bring people into the club, to show them what we're about, and the artists are usually signature members who have reached a certain professional level, and we and when they volunteer to show their work in the lobby, it is a representation of what our membership does to the general public. So I thank you for establishing that, Kay, because that was a great idea.
It was a group effort.
It's still, but it's under your leadership.
Well, it was fun to do, and we had a good group. But I do think the sketch groups that the club offers are so invaluable. If you can master the human figure, you can draw anything. And it's twice a week. I don't know of anybody that offers that in their membership. And I think it's quite a valuable piece of the club that I
certainly
absolutely.
So we do a portrait every other week, and we do figure every other week. So it's 1 week of portrait, two sessions, and 1 week of figure, 2 sessions.
Oh, wow. And basically, this club has been active since 1890, and they also have the
Mhm.
Women's Club Art Club of Cincinnati. It was 1892, if I was looking at the history
Mhm.
correctly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they're basically what's remarkable is through the Civil War, through World War One, through the Great Depression, through World War Two, through Vietnam, Korea,
Mhm.
COVID, this club has continued to chug along, helping people master fine art, and that's what really is remarkable, and the strength of community, really.
Absolutely. That's what I enjoyed is meeting other artists and discussing art in a very serious way. And yet you can escape the world. And we're so lucky we can do these things to save our sanity. And
Mhm.
it's a thread that has kept everybody going. It's amazing that these 13 men decided to group together back in 1890. They felt it was important too.
Mhm.
So we are very lucky that it's still surviving today.
And that one paper mache dog, which is an
Yeah.
interesting little history tip, Kay. Can you
Yes,
explain the dog?
the 13 members, John Reddig, Farney, Sharp, Twatman, they all got together to form this group. And they said, we're just going to establish this, but 13 is an unlucky number. So one of them created a paper mache dog and decided that would be the 14th member. And then they were officially, okay, we are in good standing. We've got 14 members to open the club. And the funny thing is, I've heard this from the past, that sometimes that dog would be moved in different places when you come into the club. It wouldn't necessarily always be in the same spot you left. So that could be the ghost of the club. I don't know about that because I wasn't around at that time, but it was a funny story.
That is really funny. Do you still have the paper mache dog?
Yes, we do.
It
Yeah!
lives in the storage room.
It's in the
Oh,
storage room. It's
Yeah.
at
very
least it's
delicate.
safe.
It's safe.
Oh, no, but sometimes it's in the vault. I saw it in the vault the
Oh,
other
good.
day.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good spot for him.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Just
So,
as a history lover, I'm jazzed to hear that this is the
See,
dog
you just,
lives.
yeah. Yes,
uh,
yes. But they were a group of very talented men.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I think it was Barney that did the American Indian. Is that correct,
Mm.
Marlene? Um,
yes. Mhm.
and they were very accomplished artists. And I knew they felt that they were coming together in a very important way to keep this fine art alive. And we're
Mhm.
grateful to them for doing that because they
Yeah.
had some tough times.
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
course. And they did more than just gather. I mean, they demonstrated,
Yeah.
they critiqued each
Mhm,
other,
mhm.
and that grouping around Duveneck and Farney and Sharp, who were highly recognized artists. This was and Duveneck in his time was one of the most
Oh,
sought after teachers
absolutely.
in the era when he came
Mhm,
back from Germany and
Mhm.
located here. It was a very tumultuous time in his life, but because he had just lost his wife of 2 years,
mhm.
but he came back to Cincinnati to teach and to rebuild his professional life. Um, I think I think the association thrived um, on mm,
There's
their need to work together
Mhm.
and to consult with each other and have these friendships.
Absolutely.
oh, yeah, and every really good, healthy artist collective is able to meet and share ideas and help improve one another, not tear each other down, but give some constructive critiques over, like, hey, maybe try using that color instead of
Mhm, mhm.
mauve or whatever. It's, I don't know why
That's
mauve,
true.
but
That's true. Very true.
No.
Yeah.
No, I have learned more from other artists that even in commercial jobs, working at Gibson Greetings as a lettering artist, I learned more from other people working in the department and in the creative department than you can ever find in books. There is that life experience exchange,
Mhm.
and that is it's just like your daily bread. I mean,
Mhm.
really, you grow so much when you associate with other artists because you're learning from their real life experiences, and and every artist benefits by that. And it doesn't contradict the fact that we are solitary individuals in the act of creation.
Mhm.
When we're making our work in the studio, I mean, you really kind of have to close out distractions, concentrate, be kind of turn inward and create the work. But um, but practicing with other artists and going to a critique group, because we have the art club has a critique group that meets once a month now, and you can bring what you're working on to the group and have a constructive conversation about the perceptions of the painting or the artwork, and maybe what is not quite working,
Mhm.
and ask questions and see what someone else with a different set of eyes can contribute to your critical analysis.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
that is also, besides the sketch group, that is also a very
Very
um,
valuable.
very valuable experience. And then
Absolutely.
we have exhibition programming that are club sponsored, so there are no fees for those opportunities to show your work in class, like signature or associate class shows, or shows that are media themed uh, um, or group themed, like sketch group or critique group, or the DAWG, which is digital art working group. So it's been very expandable
Mhm.
experience for the membership.
Yeah. It does. I do wonder, do you have it open to all ages? Do you have specific age sets that can participate? I think the club is 18 and over, but do you have like kids groups or anything?
Uh, we have um, we have student membership
Mhm.
as well as associate and signature. Um, I we don't have I and probably should edit this out. We don't have youth
Okay.
groups.
Mhm.
Um,
We
okay,
do offer a competition once a year for high school students
high
where we
Mhm.
school.
designate a place where they can go and sketch or paint one day, and they bring their work back to the club, and then we offer a scholarship for the first three best pieces that we have a panel that decides what looks really good. And so we're trying to reach out to high school seniors that would
Mhm.
like to
Mhm.
pursue art. And that's a
Okay.
very valuable. And then
That's
those
a
pieces
that,
that
oh
go ahead, Marlene.
no, you go ahead. You're describing it really well.
Well, it's just we take the four pieces that are the very best, first, second, third, fourth, and then we display them in the art museum for about a month and a half so that people can visit and see what was going on and how they've accomplished this. And this is very exciting. And they make a little bit of money on their prize money, and it helps them with their future choice in where they want to go beyond high school. And that's
Mhm.
kind of a reaching out that we've done for high schoolers because they're pretty serious at that point.
Yes. I remember being a high schooler and into art, and my friends and I were very serious. We were gonna really make it.
Mhm.
But yes, scholarships were very much needed to be able to get any money that we could get to go and do go to school and buy our art supplies and all of that. Very much
Exactly.
needed. So it's good to hear the art club is participating in
Yeah.
events like that. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yes.
so
And then
this is
Marlene is opening a new exhibit for women. Go ahead, Marlene, and
Yeah.
explain about the women's exhibit. Really
yes.
exciting.
Could I add one more thing that might be relevant about the high school it's a high school plein air competition, so they have to draw on the spot in different sites.
That's
and
true.
we have had a real variety, but this year, interestingly enough, we are citing our competition at Gorman Farms, which has beautiful sunflowers and sunflowers, fields of sunflowers. And the sunflower is the national flower of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think that is so interesting. So we hope to have a really wonderful exhibition. It'll be the first Sunday in October
Okay.
at the club in the Wessel Gallery.
All right.
So if we add that, maybe.
Nice.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then
Did you have a question about that?
no, I was just saying that the timing is so serendipitous just to go with the current events going on with the world and the sunflowers. But no, I was going to say, please tell us about the latest exhibit that you were about to tell us about.
Very good. March is Women's Month nationally. And in designing the calendar this year, I thought it would be an interesting inaugural exhibition of the women membership of the art club, and to go back and find out who these women were who joined in when the club first opened the membership to women. And so this has been challenging in some ways, because this was women who were working in the late 70s, early 80s, and also people have moved, and life has moved everyone through different phases and eras. And so we hope that this exhibition will be a coming home, so to speak, for the women membership. And it is the first time ever that a show of just the women of the club has been organized.
Oh, wow. That's really good.
I think it'll be, I really hope that this happens, but there are three women presidents and 3 living women presidents. And I'm hoping that we have a historic moment at the reception where all 3 of them will be at the club together and meet in front of their paintings.
Oh, that would be wonderful. And if I read my notes correctly, we went from the Cincinnati Art Club having 0 female members to being over 50% female now.
This is true.
Wow. Yay. Go us. Yay.
Yeah, it's approximately 55% membership now.
Oh, wow.
And we do great work on the board. And they are wonderful volunteers. A club, a nonprofit club like this runs on the blood of its volunteers. And it's just very, very important that the membership supports the activities with their work, with their time, and their resources.
Absolutely. We are very lucky, because in this day and age, it's difficult to get volunteers. So people have to be really into wanting to do this.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So the current goals with the art club is to diversify the membership, and also to diversify the mediums that people are working in, and recognizing different mediums besides oil and watercolor.
Okay.
So photography, digital art, fiber art, sculpture, and even cloisonne. I mean, we haven't had a show about it, but I think it's very important to put so many bring so many different mediums together
Mhm.
in the shows that we do.
I do have to ask this only because I'm a part of the community, but have you considered comic books? We're a pop art.
Graphic novels,
Graphic novels.
I think it's great.
It's
I
beyond it's
like
more
to
than
call them,
tights and capes, it's more than Marvel and DC. We have a
yes,
very strong
definitely.
independent comic group.
And it's a drawing opportunity.
Yes,
People
right.
these great drawings that with blams and kabams and everything in them. It's really wonderful.
It's
It
just a
is.
fun
And it's the
introduction.
figure too. Mhm,
It's a
mhm.
figure too, yeah.
Oh,
With
yeah.
Right.
plot, with stories,
Yeah.
with expressions.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
you're talking about figure art and knowing landscape art, and those are just hallmarks. You have to know how to do figure expression before you can
Oh, yeah.
exaggerate it for comics, or it's not going to be convincing. It's going to look messy. So I know when I teach how to draw comics classes, I'm like, first, you have to know your foundational art. You can't be drawing an incredible stretching character if you don't know how arm joints work. Like, so, or just
Very
landscapes.
true.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
it's interesting talking to the students, and the students I've taught in the past are taught in ages from middle school to 60 plus. And they're just like, "But comics, they're so cartoony." And I'm like, "Yes, but you need to know your fundamentals before you can become cartoony." So, fun
Absolutely.
things. So, I just say,
True.
think about it. You don't have to answer, but think about it. So, um, yeah, and I think we've talked about all of our main points. I think I'll bring Christina and Jen on to spice up our conversation because we've hit
Okay.
a natural point to bring them on. Oh, Christina's really eager. She's like, "Bam, I'm here." It's Christina. And
Oh, I was gonna say, do you have any legendary stories from the art club? A club over 100. Like, are there any legends that travel around, like stories that people kind of tell when people first join the group? I mean, it doesn't be secret stories.
Well, I'll tell my little story. And this happened. Now I've been exhibition chair now this is my third year. Kate knows how the appointments on the board run, and so I was waiting one day about 2 years ago for a volunteer to come and help me do something at the club, like put up a show or something. And the interesting thing that was that I come into the club by myself. I lock the door behind me, okay, because I don't want anyone to walk in. We're not open. I'm waiting to do some work, and so and you can see from the door. You can see straight down the hallway into the kitchen. So I was standing in the kitchen and I was browsing a book and keeping an eye for my volunteer to come. And out of the corner of my eye, I was looking down at the counter and looking in. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure in the door area, and I thought, oh, that must be Margaret. I'll go and let her in. So when I walked to the front of the towards the door, there was nobody there.
ooh,
And so in thinking back, I realized that it was a gray figure that had moved across the hallway entrance door, not outside on the glass door. And that particular part of the club was the original door. The lobby was added on outside the original wall.
Mm.
So this person went from the doorway into the gallery, into the lobby, from right to left.
Hmm.
And it was a gray figure. It had no kind of dimension. It seemed like it had kind of a belly. And the head was not defined by the skull. It had kind of like a slouch hat on. There were shapes around the head that were not skull-like. So I
Mhm.
thought, And when I perceived it, I didn't think much about it. I was just waiting for a volunteer. And but a few minutes later, Margaret showed up, and she was outside, not inside. And so I let her in, and I kind of realized that I'd seen a ghost. I had seen an interior figure inside the club.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't scared, but I was just it's kind of an interesting experience.
Yeah. And how old is that particular part of the building?
Well, we have a watercolor that we exhibited just recently that shows the site as a vacant property. And the watercolor, the person making the watercolor looked up the hill and painted actually the house next door. That is the very next building going up the hill on Parkside Place. And in the bottom left corner of the watercolor is part of a sign that says "Future Home of the Cincinnati Art Club." And so what's also cool about that watercolor is the bottom of the paper has all the signatures of the people who were members, the membership that at the time of that watercolor that was made. And so it's just I don't know exactly when the building was built, but it was built in phases. So there was the original building, and then a renovation occurred that they added on the outside lobby. They extended the front of the building about 10 foot or so, and added the glass doors that you see today on the front of the building.
Yeah, well, that's really neat. That's a good story.
Yeah, we don't always. Would that be considered a shadow person when she saw that person go by?
Oh no, that's
Or
just
just
an apparition. That's
Just an apparition.
That's an apparition. Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
No colors,
not to go all Egon, like
just the gray, and it just moved horizontally. It didn't walk like a movement, like a walk. It just moved
kind of
horizontally across. And I was totally blown away. I was just
wow.
Yeah. It's
now,
very
what about you, Kay? Oh.
Okay, Duveneck and another artist, I don't know which one, were painting in the
Clement
art museum
Barnhorn.
at midnight
Clement-
with whiskey.
Okay.
Yes, and it wasn't with whiskey, they were drinking. And the painting is terrible. They were both painting, I don't know, some figures, but it wasn't very good, and I'm sure they were not very proud of it. But there is an evidence of that painting somewhere that is not very good.
That's fun.
That's a great story.
It's hiding
I know
somewhere in
about
the
it.
archives.
Yeah, maybe it's in that vault you talked about, Marlene.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
Maybe.
Well, we probably should wrap it up before Kay loses all juice in her phone.
Yes.
Is there any closing statements that either of you have? We've really enjoyed having you on the show. It's been so interesting.
Well, thank you. Okay. The conversational of this whole aspect, it's been really, really wonderful to meet everyone online and have this personal conversation.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another wonderful episode of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents the Hometown Haunts podcast. I am your host, Kat Cloco, along with me, Christina Wald and Jen Kohler. You can follow us on social media at Cin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram. You can also send us your hometown haunts. We're dying to hear them at hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com, and join our Facebook group, Hometown Haunts, to talk to other fringe history and spooky story lovers just like yourself. Also, just for all of you listeners, you can follow Kay Words at kwordsfineart.com and Marlene Steele at marlenesteelefineart.com. So thank you for joining us. It was wonderful. Good night and stay spooky.